Truck driver saves expecting mother, then discovers the shocking truth about her child's father. Jake maneuvered his rig along the winding country road. The rain poured steadily against the windshield, blurring the world outside. He took comfort in the rhythm of the diesel engine, the hum of the tires on asphalt. But as he rounded a bend, a flash of metal caught his eye, the unmistakable silhouette of a car crumpled against a tree. His heart raced. He parked and leaped out, sprinting toward the wreckage, anxiety clawing at his gut. "Stay calm, I'm here to help," he yelled, approaching the car. Inside, a pregnant woman named Sarah cried out in pain. Her face was pale, hands trembling as she struggled to shift, trapped in her seat. Panic tightened Jake's chest. She was clearly in distress. Unease swirled through him. Was he really equipped to handle this? With every ounce of determination, Jake pried the door open and guided Sarah free. "You're going to be okay," he reassured her. But as she winced, her eyes filled with fear, he felt the weight of her situation pressing down like a lead blanket. She was going into labor. In the back of his mind, a persistent voice whispered, "You're just a truck driver. This isn't your fight." But another part of him, the part that thrived on the open road, said, "This is the moment you step up." They sped towards the hospital, rain hammering against the roof as Sarah voiced her fears. She talked about her estranged husband, a high-profile attorney, who had left her alone to face this life-altering moment. Jake's chest tightened at her words. Words like abandon, struggles, and judgment filled the air, feeding his own fears of inadequacy. Could he really make a difference? Would he be able to confront the societal narratives that weighed so heavily on her? Before they reached the hospital, Jake discovered a dark truth. Sarah's husband had refused to be there for her. Fury ignited within him. This man had wielded privilege to walk away from a responsibility that was life-changing for Sarah and their child. Was it his place to confront the lawyer? The thought made Jake's stomach twist with unease. A truck driver challenging a man in a tailored suit. What right did he have? Yet, a fire, ignited by the injustice Sarah faced, called him to act. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the hospital loomed closer, Jake felt a turmoil of conflicting emotions. He questioned whether his loyalty to Sarah was a selfless act, or if it was a reflection of his own need for redemption. Her struggles began to weigh on him heavily, forcing him to face societal prejudices he had often avoided. Each conversation deepened their bond, entwining their fates. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, muscles tense, his mind racing, grappling with changes he could neither foresee nor control. Then came an anonymous message that shattered the fragile equilibrium he'd built. It hinted at a dark secret buried deep in the attorney's legacy, a revelation that could destroy everything Sarah believed about her past and her future. Jake felt the ground shift beneath him. Was he prepared to uncover a truth that could lay bare the fragility of their connection? As urgency gripped him and the sirens drew near, he stood at a crossroads. Integrity and influence loomed on either side, and he was left questioning what true justice really meant. As Jake parked the truck at the hospital and rushed Sarah inside, adrenaline coursed through his veins. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the air, sharpening his awareness of the stakes. The urgency of their situation pressed down on him, even as he felt the weight of that anonymous message simmering in the back of his mind, threatening to disrupt both his resolve and the fragile hope Sarah clung to. Once inside, nurses quickly took charge, guiding them through the chaotic space. Sarah's distressed cries echoed in Jake's ears, his heart tightening with each painful contraction she endured. He found himself gripped by an instinct to protect her, a feeling that surged through him like the powerful hum of his truck's engine. Familiar, yet exhilarating. There was something new blossoming within him. a seed of confidence he had never nurtured before. Standing against the bright hospital walls, he started to question his own limitations. The truck driver label felt heavy in that moment, as if it denoted a lack of authority he had always accepted without question. What if he were more than that? What if he could be the support Sarah needed? Each word she uttered, every tear that fell from her eyes, chipped away at the preconceived notions he had of himself. As the medical staff prepared for delivery, Jake stepped back, his mind racing with thoughts of Sarah's estranged husband. The knowledge of the attorney's absence aggravated him. Could a man so self-assured turn his back on a life-altering adventure like parenthood? Jake ruminated over the ethical dilemmas echoing within and around him. His own experiences with abandonment and doubt surfaced, forcing him to confront their impact on his current resolve. But at the core of his reflection was a decision to be made. Would he act against the injustice unfolding around Sarah? The attorney's legacy loomed like a specter, one that could, should he choose to challenge it, expose the frailty of power and privilege. Jake pondered the message that had arrived before they embarked on this journey, the darker truths lurking at the edges of professionalism, hidden beneath polished veneers. Would he risk uncovering them? A nurse suddenly approached him, a sense of urgency etched into her features. "She's asking for you. She needs someone. She needs you," she said, her voice steady, but filled with significance. The weight of those words anchored him in that moment, compelling him forward. With a deep breath, he steeled himself. This was not just a moment for Sarah's sake, but for his own evolution as well. As he entered the room, Sarah looked worn, yet resilient, a tenacity glimmering in her eyes that sparked something dormant within Jake. In that instant, he decided to confront not only the issues at hand, but also the absurdity of judging one's worth based on profession or societal roles. He took her hand, the warmth of her grip igniting a newfound resolve. "What are you gonna do now?" she asked between labored breaths. His answer hung between them, a promise spoken softly in the charged atmosphere. "Whatever it takes." Just as he found his stride, the phone in his pocket vibrated violently, the screen casting a harsh glow against the dim room. Another message, but this one was different. As he glanced at the sender, a chill ran down his spine. The face of the attorney loomed over him from the message, a direct challenge to the path he was about to take. Jake's mind raced. He realized the crossroads stretched further than just Sarah's life. It was about his own metamorphosis. The revelation of the attorney's involvement ignited a burning desire for justice buried deep within. The air thickened with tension as he grappled with what had now become an impending confrontation. Would he follow through with this newfound purpose? Or would he allow fear to dictate his next steps? The moment loomed larger than life, a critical junction where he would decide either to embrace his role as a protector or retreat into the shadows of his doubts. As the doctor entered the room, Jake prepared to face not just Sarah's reality, but the man who had abandoned her. The time had come to face the truth behind the facade of privilege and power. Jake felt as though he was standing on the precipice of a great chasm. There was no going back now. The weight of Sarah's tears and the urgency of her situation demanded his complete attention. The attorney's message in his pocket pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding him of the looming battle ahead. The specter of abandonment hung in the air, thick and tangible, challenging him to fight against it, both for Sarah and himself. As the doctor entered and oriented himself toward the task at hand, Jake took a moment to evaluate his surroundings. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting harsh reflections on the walls that seemed to echo both hope and dread in equal measure. The sterile environment filled him with a sense of both discomfort and clarity. This was where life was brought into the world, and yet it felt like a battleground, fraught with emotion and conflict. Jake's gaze shifted to Sarah, still resolute despite her exhaustion. He squeezed her hand firmly, grounding himself in her presence. Her strength ignited something dormant within him, a fierce determination to redefine who he was, carved only by action, not mere titles. As the doctor prepped for delivery, every sound, the beeping machines, the murmurs of nurses, felt amplified in the charged silence that enveloped them. Jake's heart raced in sync with Sarah's contractions, each wave of pain echoing the turmoil within him. He had long accepted the mediocrity of his existence as a truck driver, but witnessing Sarah's labor forced him to confront the unconscious choices he had made, the fear that had kept him on the sidelines of his own life. He wanted to be a part of her story, to imbue it with the strength he could offer. But how could he effectively fight against the attorney's legacy? The thought gnawed at him uneasily. He needed to untangle the threads that had kept him bound within his limited sense of self. Whatever it took, a voice raised in defiance or a leap into the unknown, he would explore every possibility, because Sarah deserved it. And so did he. "Jake!" Sarah gasped through grit teeth, her expression shifting from pain to something bordering on desperation. "Please don't leave me. I can't." "I'm here, Sarah," he replied, squinting against the spotlight of worry in her eyes. "I won't let you go through this alone." The doctor began to call for assistance, adding to the sense of impending chaos. A team of nurses rushed in, their professionalism seeming both busy and chaotic, each step intensifying Jake's urge to act. He shifted his focus, noticing one particular nurse who appeared composed in the whirlwind, reminiscent of the truck drivers he worked with, unfazed in the face of challenges, efficient, and calm. "Do you need anything else?" he asked the nurse, who flashed him a brief, accommodating smile, then returned to her duties. The contrast between her calm and the storm playing out made something click within him. He could be that organized force for Sarah. In that moment, clarity washed over him as he formulated a plan. He would attain the necessary information about the attorney's involvement without letting fear bind him. He would empower himself to confront the truth of who Sarah's child's father was. This would not only involve delicately unraveling the attorney's web, but standing firm beside Sarah as a voice for her rights and support. Finally, Sarah let out a scream, drawing all attention back to her. The doctor moved to take charge, yelling instructions, each command carving a place for Jake in this unfolding drama. No longer just a bystander, he could radiate support where it was most needed. Jake's resolve solidified. This would not just be a transaction of actions, but a transformation of identity. Whatever came after this moment, the confrontation with the attorney, the unraveling of truths, he would be there, vowing to rise above all that had been bestowed upon him. As a new contraction seized Sarah, Jake leaned close and murmured, "You're almost there. You can do this." But unfurling compassion and advocacy would demand more than simply emotional labor. The thought of the attorney's looming presence pulled at him like a fog, threatening to obscure the horizon Jake now was determined to embrace. As Sarah cried out again, the stakes soared around them. Jake was ready to face the truth, to wrestle with his evolution and Sarah's reality. But he knew the confrontation with the attorney was imminent. He would soon find out just how deep the roots of privilege ran, and how far he was willing to go to protect her and her child. The door swung open again, and in stepped the attorney himself, his presence electrifying the air with potential hostility. Jake's heart pounded with raw determination as he realized this was not merely about Sarah's baby. It was about his own awakening. What he didn't know was how far this challenge would push him not just as a protector, but as a man redefining his existence. The time for promises had ended. Now it was time for action. As the attorney's polished shoes echoed across the sterile floor, Jake's stomach tightened, the man's confident gait a stark contrast to the frenetic energy swirling in the room. He could feel the weight of his presence pressing down like a leaden blanket, each step toward them a reminder of the complications ahead. "Jake, I trust you understand the situation here," the attorney began, his voice smooth but laced with underlying tension. "Let's keep this civil." Jake's jaw clenched. Civil? This was anything but civil. He glanced at Sarah, her face contorted with pain and determination, and he felt a spark of solidarity ignite within him. A decision needed to be made, and he had to speak for them both. "Civil? You think it's civil to step into a room while Sarah is about to give birth? A room filled with the weight of uncertainty?" Jake countered, his voice steadier than he felt. The attorney's gaze narrowed slightly. "I have a right to be here. I'm representing the best interests of the child." Jake suppressed a scoff. "How? By leveraging legalities to strip her rights?" The attorney smirked, an almost imperceptible twist of his lips. "Let's not pretend this is just about feelings, Jake. There are laws, a reputation. You need to understand you're not in charge here. Jake inhaled deeply, an expansion of chest and spirit. No more would he cower under someone else's authority. This moment, filled with pain and fear, demanded a different response. He was tired of letting others dictate his life, or those who mattered to him. Then help me understand, Jake said, stepping closer to the attorney, who stood unyielding. What about Sarah's choice? What rights does she get in all this? Surprise flared briefly in the attorney's eyes. His rigid composure faltered. Perhaps he hadn't anticipated such defiance. But Jake was just warming up. Behind that brief window of shock, Jake saw an opportunity, a crack in the attorney's armor. She may not know it yet, Jake continued, voice firm like steel. But there's a fight brewing. If you think I'm going to let you walk all over her and her child without a full battle, you're mistaken. Sarah squeezed his hand, her grip tightening, grounding him. He turned his attention back to her, seeking a balance between fighting for her and being her emotional anchor. Just focus on breathing, Sarah, remember? One contraction at a time? The attorney's brow furrowed, and for a moment, the veneer of authority slipped just enough for Jake to seize his opening. This moment wasn't just about Sarah. This was about reclaiming his own narrative. He'd accepted a passive role in life for too long, wrestling with the stigma of his profession, the weight of previous paths untaken. Yet here, in this chaotic sanctuary, everything shifted. As they navigated through contractions and fervent whispers from medical staff, Jake assembled fragments of a plan amidst the uncertainty. He would gather unfiltered information on the attorney, exploring ways to support Sarah that transcended legal jargon. A truth he'd fight for that wasn't just built on contracts but on compassion and connection. Let me remind you of something, Jake said sharply, redirecting focus to the attorney. You're not an absolute authority here. You may represent the child on paper, but this is still Sarah's life, and I won't let you forget that. The attorney studied him, measuring resolve with a calculative gaze. This was not merely about a legal claim anymore. It was a chess match of wills, and for the first time, Jake understood he held a piece on the board. Sarah deserves better than to be bullied into submission over what's rightfully hers. The words surged with more power than he'd felt in days, awakening a quiet confidence that had long lain dormant. As tension crackled between them, Jake resolved to dismantle the attorney's facade, not just for Sarah, but for the man he was becoming. The ground beneath him felt less unsteady with each confrontational breath, and for every ounce of adrenaline that coursed through him, clarity and purpose crystallized. Suddenly, an urgent yell echoed from the delivery room, the reality of the moment crashing into focus. He had started something, and now doors were opening that he couldn't unpush. Jake was done playing it safe. As the attorney exchanged pointed looks with the medical team, an unsettling awareness coursed through Jake. Just as he recognized the spike in conflict, he also sensed the certainty that lay beneath. The stakes were mounting, and whatever lay on the other side of this confrontation, he had to be ready to face it. Let's see who really holds the power here, he thought, watching the attorney flicker uncertainty with every passing second. But whatever revelations awaited, he braced himself for the truth, the kind that could shatter or solidify everything he'd aspired to be. Jake's heart raced with an intoxicating mixture of hope and apprehension. What would it mean to fully confront not just the attorney's claim, but the life changes now unfolding for both him and Sarah? The weight of possibilities loomed, and the confrontation was only just beginning. As new voices joined the fray, the next chapter of his life beckoned him forth, urging him to step into the light. Jake leaned against the cold wall outside the delivery room, the sterile scent of antiseptic clinging to him like a second skin. The tension from the confrontation hung thick in the air, swirling around him, fueling his resolve. Each heartbeat drummed a rhythm of insistence in his ears, a reminder of the stakes resting on the edge of uncertainty. His mind raced, not just with the legal implications of the attorney's presence, but with the deeper significance of what this moment could unlock. For years, he had followed a path paved by fear and complacency, allowing life's currents to dictate his direction. But within the chaos, his purpose began to crystallize. Confrontation wasn't merely about defending Sarah. It was about standing his ground, staking claim to his own existence. "We're fighters, Sarah," he whispered under his breath as he shifted his focus back to her in the delivery room. "We're going to get through this together." A fervent plea to the universe, and perhaps to his inner self. Because this was about more than just legal rights. It was about ensuring that Sarah and her child emerged surrounded by love rather than legalese. With the attorney temporarily sidelined, the flickering shadows on the wall reminded Jake of the many moments in his life when he had hesitated. He had let fear stifle his voice in discussions at work, silenced his opinions in boardrooms, and let his ambition fade beneath the expectations of others. But today was different. Today, he was reclaiming not just Sarah's rights, but his own spirit. He glanced at the door, where muffled sounds of urgency seeped through. Outside the center of chaos, he felt the gravity of the situation broadening into personal evolution. The uncharted journey of fatherhood and partnership loomed before him, both beautiful and fraught with challenges. "Think strategically," he reminded himself, pushing away the impulse to overwhelm himself with emotions. Too much depended on the choices he made now, and this was the pivotal moment when he could leverage his growing assertiveness. He needed to know what the attorney planned next. Researching the man was essential, dissecting his methods, uncovering any weaknesses. Jake felt adrenaline find its way into his veins again as he pulled out his phone, fingers poised over the screen. But there was a deeper layer to unveil, the foundation of who he might become in the eyes of this newborn life. Jake's stomach churned with both excitement and dread. The dreams he'd shelved, the potential fatherhood he'd never anticipated, stirred within him. What if he was meant to nurture and defend, not just against the legal system but in nurturing Sarah's dreams too? He realized he was not just fighting a legal battle. He was embracing his identity, intentionally rewriting the story of his life. Each piece he uncovered about the attorney would not only arm him in this conflict, but serve as his stepping stone into a more confident existence, not defined by the shadows of the past, but by the encounters yet to unfold. As the delivery room door swung open, a flurry of medical staff buzzed past. They brought with them the tangible sense of life, vigorous yet delicate. A nurse met Jake's gaze, her eyes brightened with encouragement. "You're up, Dad. This is your moment." The words struck through the haze of anticipation and Jake's heartbeat quickened, thumping loudly in his ears. "Dad." He tried the word on his tongue, molding it like clay, purposeful and raw. He stepped toward the door, determination seeping into the cracks of uncertainty. Here was the risk, the promise. It was time to embrace whatever lay ahead. With a steadying breath, he prepared to enter the room filled with potential, the moment that would forever shift the context of his life. Jake squared his shoulders, anchoring his resolve. One last glance at the attorney lingering like a specter outside, his grip tightening on the phone. The resolve was palpable. The game ahead was not just about Sarah, but about understanding the depths of his own commitment. "Whether you like it or not, I'm breaking this cycle," he thought fiercely, crossing the threshold into the unknown. With each step, the need to protect surged, and he felt the weight of purpose propel him forward. As he entered, the reality dawned. Blood, sweat, and hope all fused in a beautiful cacophony of life and struggle. Jake's heart expanded as he remembered the promise he made. This was his fight, and there would be no turning back now. But the looming question hung heavily. What shocking truths awaited them in this overwhelming moment? The answer, just beyond the veil of anticipation, could change everything. The moment Jake stepped into the delivery room, the world outside faded into a dull hum. He focused his gaze on Sarah, whose face reflected both pain and resolute determination. She was surrounded by doctors and nurses, their chatter a mix of urgency and professionalism that crashed over Jake like waves. "Jake!" Sarah gasped, glancing up at him. And despite the chaos, the connection between them anchored his swirling thoughts. Her eyes held a flicker of vulnerability that pierced through him. "I'm scared." "I'm here, Sarah. We'll get through this," he assured, his heart a mix of pride and concern. Cradling her hand in his, he felt the warmth of the skin he had once deemed impervious to harm. Now, it seemed fragile, needing his strength in this moment, and the weight of expectation pressed against him like a heavy blanket. As each contraction racked through her, he saw her grapple with fierce resolve. Watching her endure the pain, something shifted within him. This wasn't merely about legal rights anymore. This was about love, transformation, and the intrinsic tie that would bind them as parents. A nurse approached him, a clipboard in hand, her demeanor calm in the face of urgency. "Dad, can you step aside briefly? We need to prep for the birth." Jake stepped back, his chest tightening as he watched them work. The room buzzed with activity, but his world slowed to a crawl. He was grappling not only with the reality of impending fatherhood, but with that attorney lurking like a warning sign in the back of his mind. As he pulled at the edges of his thoughts, he pictured the legal fight that loomed ahead. Think ahead, he told himself, splintering his focus. What if he could use this moment to strengthen their case, to reframe their narrative from one of legal strife to familial bonding? "Jake?" Sarah's voice broke through. The pleading echo echoed in his heart. He raced back to her side, scanning her face for strength. "I'm right here, babe. Let's do this." With newfound determination, he began to visualize the future. Not just a courtroom with stinging rulings, but a home filled with laughter, love, and maybe even moments of quiet rebellion against their pasts. For the first time, he considered how he could grow with Sarah and their child. As the medical staff assisted her, he celebrated her strength silently, but doubts clung to him like shadows. What if he wasn't enough? What if the realities of life beyond these walls threatened to pull them apart? He had watched too many people fail when faced with the weight of responsibility. He refused to be another statistic. He focused again on Sarah, her brow furrowed in concentration, beads of sweat glistening like tiny stars on her forehead. She was fighting, for their child, for their future, and for whatever moment lay ahead. "Come on, Sarah," he whispered fiercely. "You can do it. We can do it." With every contraction, Sarah pushed, her body exhibiting resilience and strength born from desperation and hope. The room crescendoed with energy, each moment surging like waves crashing against a shore, enveloping them both in the tide of experience. And then it came. A first cry, a sound that shattered the tension in the air, bursting forth like sunlight through dark clouds. Instinctively, he reached for Sarah, his heart swelling with emotion he had yet to define. "It's a boy," a nurse announced, and with that proclamation Jake's breath caught in his throat, reality hitting him full force. They were now a family. "Look, Jake," Sarah beamed, her voice hoarse but filled with joy. "We did it." He couldn't contain the smile that broke across his face. In that moment, they had forged something incredible, defying their turbulent pasts in pursuit of a future. But as the doctor approached holding the swaddled infant, Jake's heart lurched. "We need to discuss some things," the doctor said, his tone shifting the entire atmosphere. Jake's mind raced. The uncertainty in the doctor's voice sent chills down his spine. He remembered the attorney, the looming pressures that lay beyond this room, and suddenly, joy twisted into apprehension. "What do you mean?" Jake managed, uncertainty carving lines across his face. The room grew still, the weight of the moment hanging heavily. With the flicker of 1,000 questions sparking in his mind, he understood one thing. If there were truths waiting to be exposed, the time to confront them was now. And as the doctor spoke, lines of fate were drawn tighter than ever before. What would this revelation entail for the future they had just begun to forge? Jake stood frozen, the swaddled infant cradled in the doctor's hands reminding him of the joy that had just lit up the room. Yet the clarity in the doctor's eyes hinted at seriousness that felt like a cold draft sweeping through a warm home. "We need to consider your options regarding infant care as you both prepare for what happens next," the doctor said, steadying his gaze on Jake. The implication was immediate and heavy. "Options?" Jake echoed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "What do you mean?" "Given the circumstances surrounding the birth, we need to discuss your rights." The doctor paused, perhaps weighing his words. "There may be concerns regarding custody." The word custody sliced through Jake like a sudden shock of ice water. It ignited every buried anxiety he had interred within himself, fears of inadequacy creeping back to the forefront. He felt profoundly unprepared, not just as a father, but as the man meant to protect his family against the relentless tide of their past. "Is there something I should know?" he pressed, urgency lacing his voice. His heart picked up a frantic rhythm as images of harsh realities began to swirl around him: courtroom battles, strained relationships, and the relentless pursuit of an attorney's treachery. "It's not about knowing something you aren't aware of, Jake. It's about preparing for a potential challenge." The doctor's cool demeanor did little to quell the storm brewing within him. "You and Sarah will need legal counsel. A paternity test may be advisable, too." "Sarah and I—" His voice faltered, the implications swirling like debris in a cyclone. "We've just had a child. We're a family now. How could there be a challenge?" In that instant, Jake felt an unsettling shift in his perception of the day. The joy of becoming a father battled against the overwhelming anxiety of losing it all. The intense bond he felt towards Sarah wavered under the scrutiny of potential fractures in their relationship, shakes of doubt that posed real threats to their burgeoning family. He turned to Sarah, whose eyes reflected a mix of exhaustion and bewilderment. "What does this mean for us?" He struggled to keep his tone even, attempting to shield Sarah from the worry creeping into his voice. I don't know," she admitted, confusion clouding her features. I thought we were past all of this." They were both battleships adrift in an ocean of uncertainty. He could almost see the tension drawing lines across their foreheads as they grappled with a new reality that felt entirely outside their control. Reflective thoughts collided in his mind, but amid the chaos, one notion crystallized. This was a moment to confront their shadows. Jake needed to rise from this current, and the only way to do that was by digging deeper, reaching into the parts of himself he had only recently begun to understand. "I'll figure this out," he stated, conviction threading through his voice. There was power in commitment, in the promise of growth. He felt a flicker of that resolve igniting an internal fire. He could not let fear dictate their narrative. They had already transformed from hesitation to hope. They could continue to harness that energy and push through this adversity together. But how? Plans for a future were swirling dangerously close to the realm of uncertainty. He needed direction. "Let me talk to that attorney," Jake breathed, the decision emerging like a diver surfacing after a long dive. "I'll need to understand everything, all the legal options." Sarah's gaze widened with newfound concern, but he pressed on. "No matter what, we're going to protect our family, Sarah. We have to." As they left the delivery room, Jake felt a surge of determination coursing through him, blending seamlessly with the uncertainty swirling around them. Yet even as they faced the glaring lights of the hospital corridor, Jake recognized the truth. Confronting this daunting lawyer was only the beginning. The deeper question loomed larger than any legal battle. Could he muster the courage to stand up for the family they were becoming? And as he prepared to face the storm, a new puzzle clicked into place. Who was he really fighting against? The attorney? Or the doubts within himself? With that thought echoing in his mind, he steeled himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. The moment had come to face the realities of his past, and he knew one truth powerfully. It was time to change the destiny he had once believed was beyond his control. Jake felt the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing with sterility and a dull hum, but the world around him blurred into insignificance. All that mattered was the urgency swelling within him. As he walked with Sarah toward the exit, the weight of impending decisions loomed over him like a heavy fog. The prospect of consulting with an attorney rattled him, though he refused to cower. They stepped outside, and an unexpected cacophony of city life flooded Jake's senses. The sun looked brighter, perhaps mocking his internal struggle. Sarah walked beside him, her hand clasped tightly around his, but there was an unsettling tremor in her grip. He could feel her unease wrapping around them both like a constricting vine. "Jake," she began tentatively, breaking the silence that had enveloped them since they left the delivery room. "Do you really think it's necessary? I mean, an attorney?" He stopped, turning to her. Her eyes brimmed with anxiety, a reflection of his own internal turmoil. "I can't take any chances, Sarah. If there's even a sliver of doubt about what they might question, about me being a father, I need to be prepared. His voice steadied with conviction, but the tremor of fear lurked just beneath the surface. I get it, I really do, she replied, the vulnerability in her voice cutting through him. I wish we could enjoy this time, you know? Just being parents. Jake breathed deeply, trying to channel his spiraling thoughts into something constructive. I wish too, and I will. But first, we have to ensure our foundation is solid. We can't pretend there's not an elephant in the room. As they approached Jake's car, he clenched and unclenched his fists, remembering the warmth of the infant's tiny body, the sensation of bliss that had sparked so brightly just hours before. Driving into the heart of the city felt like embarking on a nerve-wracking expedition. They entered the sleek office building where the attorney practiced, and Jake forced himself to focus. The air was thick with anticipation as he led Sarah through the glass doors. He could feel the uncertainty shift from anxiety to determination, driving him forward one step at a time. Once inside the attorney's office, formalities required Jake and Sarah to sit across from a polished mahogany desk. The attorney, a woman with an air of command, greeted them with an unyielding gaze. Jake swallowed hard. This was it. The realm where fears manifested as tangible obstacles. Thank you for coming in, she said, her tone professional but lacking warmth. What brings you here today? Jake recounted the brief but agonizing events leading to this moment, every word tasting like metal on his tongue. The moment she mentioned the possibility of combating custody issues, he felt a shift in the atmosphere. The stakes were higher than personal conflict. They reached into the fabric of his identity. What do you know about the circumstances of the birth? She asked again, her eyes scrutinizing them both. Jake hesitated, mind racing through convoluted thoughts. The temptation to hide his fears surged, but his newfound resolve propelled him forward. Just that everything was fine. But there's history. History that looms like a shadow over this child. The attorney's expression changed subtly, weighing his words as though they held the key to unlocking something deeper. Then we must prepare ourselves for all eventualities, including every angle that could be argued in court. He flinched at the mention of court, anxiety tightening newly formed knots within him. The potential conflicts began unraveling in his mind, a tapestry of what-ifs and unanswered questions. What if the past he had tried to bury resurfaced in the worst way, not just threatening his role as a father but also his identity? As they left the office, he felt a blade of realization slicing through the tension. This battle wouldn't just be external. The confrontation lay within. The presence of doubt, long brushed aside, called for reckoning. Are you all right? Sarah asked, glancing up at him. I will be, he replied, fighting to mask the tempest within. But we need to set our priorities straight. We can face this together. Yet as they walked back to the car, Jake knew their fight was only beginning. The stakes weren't just about custody. They evoked deeper questions of who he really was in this rapidly changing narrative. In the heart of turmoil, could he emerge resolute? As they prepared to navigate their next steps through the fog of complexity, Jake felt a gnawing anticipation. This was no ordinary journey. He was not merely securing rights, but redefining himself as a father. Yet uncertainty loomed near. What would this mean for their family? And could he truly protect what was now at stake? A new question loomed just ahead. Was he ready to confront the greatest unknowns that could shatter their fragile happiness? Sitting in the car, Jake gripped the steering wheel, knuckles turning white. The engine idled, a steady thrum mirroring the turmoil within him. He could see Sarah's reflection in the rearview mirror, her features shadowed under the weight of unspoken fears. Anxiety twisted and knotted in his gut as he tried to decipher the road ahead, both literally and metaphorically. Let's grab something to eat, he suggested, more to break the silence than from genuine hunger. Jake knew they needed to talk, to unpack the gravity of their situation, but finding the right words felt like hiking a steep cliff face, exhausting and perilous. The small diner they eventually chose buzzed with life. Patrons sat hunched over plates, sharing laughs and moments that felt worlds apart from his own. They slid into a booth, and the moment the waitress arrived, he ordered the first thing that came to mind, an urge to keep the conversation light, to stave off heavy inevitabilities. Sarah stared at the menu but didn't register what it contained. Her eyes drifted to the window, tracing the patterns of raindrops cascading down the glass. Jake felt a powerful tension straining the space between them. "Let's talk," he urged softly. "We can't avoid it." "Talk about what?" she whispered, almost defiantly. "The future. Our future. What we're facing." He hesitated. "I mean, who I am as a father. Why this feels like more than just a legal matter." She met his gaze for the first time, and the rawness in her expression pierced through him. "You don't think you're ready to be a father?" It was a fair question, one that sent a wave of frustration and clarity crashing over him. "Not that," he said quickly. "I meant, look, this isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about the baby and every single moment of uncertainty. I feel this pressure mounting. What if I fail? What if they see me as unfit?" The waitress returned, shaking him from his revelry, delivering their food with a tight-lipped smile. As the plates clattered onto the table, Jake fought back the swell of emotion. Guilt mixed with a fierce desire to protect. Sarah examined her food, then slowly looked up. "What if they do question you?" He leaned forward, about to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. "Then I'll fight. I'll prove I'm worthy, not just for myself, but for our child. I don't want to be another statistic. I want to raise them without the ghosts of my past shadowing us." Her eyes softened, recognizing the depths of his desperation. "We can do it, Jake. Together. But you need to trust me too." "Trust," he echoed, feeling the weight of it. The road was muddy, the potential for collateral damage high. "There's a lot of history I'm not ready to unpack," he admitted. Each word felt heavier, a burden requiring release. "And we can face it together. But you need to be honest," she urged, reaching across the table, her hand encompassing his. There was an electric consistency between them, igniting determination to confront the churning uncertainty. As they finished their meals, Jake's mind churned with numerous considerations. Should he reveal everything he felt? The doubts, the guilt, the fear of failing? Or should he maintain a facade, shielding Sarah and the baby from the demons of his past? Driving home, Jake's resolve solidified like concrete. He had spent so long trying to bury the truths of who he was that he had allowed them to fester. Vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a necessary step toward his evolution. The turmoil within him called for clarity and strength. Arriving back at his apartment, they stepped inside, and Jake felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. This was the threshold between chaos and structure, and for the first time, he felt an inkling of what it meant to balance being a protector while embracing the messiness of life. That night, lying awake, Jake wrestled with the revelations swirling in his mind. Parenting was about acceptance and responsibility, not denial. He would have to face the lurking shadows of his past head-on, revealing himself fully to Sarah, and embracing the unknown. As dawn broke, illuminating the room with a gentle glow, Jake found himself gazing at the ceiling, contemplating the imminent conversation he would have with Sarah. How far could he go in sharing his past? Was he truly ready to confront the darkest chapters of what he had hidden? The enormity of his choices loomed large, making him question not only his values but his very identity. As he surrendered to the uncharted territory ahead, one thought coursed through him. The truth could either bond them or shatter everything they had built. The moment of truth awaited, and Jake steeled himself for what came next. Was he ready to expose himself, and could he face the true test of fatherhood before him? Jake stood at the threshold of their small apartment, the air thick with anticipation. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating the memories of the past couple of days, each moment a brushstroke, painting the beginning of the life he had always yearned to embrace. Today was not just another day. It was the jump-off point into fatherhood, a role he had not only accepted, but desired deeply. With every tick of the clock, his resolve deepened. The attorney's looming presence, the uncertainties surrounding their child, and the specter of doubt that had shadowed him for so long felt significantly lighter. This was the moment he had to confront those fears and emerge transformed. "Sarah," he called, his voice steady, summoning her to the living room. As she walked in, her presence radiated grace, the essence of the struggles they'd endured together echoing in her eyes. "What's on your mind?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, curiosity dancing in her gaze. He took a breath, grounding himself. "I need to tell you everything. The truth about my past, about my fears of not being enough. Not just because of what's ahead, but because of what I've carried with me all these years." The clarity of his intent transformed the atmosphere, dispelling the remnants of anxiety lingering between them. "It's time for me to not just be a truck driver, but to be a father, fully and unapologetically." Her expression shifted, and she seated herself across from him, her unwavering gaze strong yet soft. "You're not defined by your past, Jake. You're here now. We're creating something new together." He nodded, absorbing her words. It was in this moment that he realized he hadn't just been working to become a better father. He was also working to redefine himself. He chose to speak candidly, unearthing fears he had once buried. "I've always struggled with feelings of inadequacy. I thought my worth was tied to my job, that being a truck driver made me less than. But seeing you give birth, it ignited something profound in me. I want to show up, really show up, for both you and our child." As he spoke, the subtle tremors of doubt dissipated like fog under the morning sun. Each word uncovered layers of vulnerability, but it was also a declaration of growth, a rallying call for transformation. It was no longer just about proving his worth to others, but about cultivating an inner strength. "Your child needs a father who believes in himself, Jake," Sarah replied, tears shimmering in her eyes. "And you're so much more than a label. You can conquer this." Those words resonated deep within him. He had spent years living beneath titles assigned by society, yet here was an opportunity to break free from that narrative. He was not just a truck driver. He was a protector, a partner, and soon, a father. "I'm going to confront that attorney. I want to make sure he understands that we're a family, that our rights matter," Jake declared with conviction. "This isn't just legal for me, it's personal. I need to solidify my role as a father. I have to advocate for you and our child." A flicker of pride filled Sarah's eyes. "You're ready for this, Jake. I believe in you." She reached for his hand, and their fingers intertwined, a symbolic affirmation of support. The connection nurtured within him was no longer fragile. It was fortified by the recognition of their shared journey. With each passing moment, the daunting shadows of fear dimmed, giving way to a newfound resolve that pulsated with clarity. He was equipped with purpose. He would not merely fight, he would rise, both for Sarah and their child. The decision was made. With the courage to embrace his past and step into his future, Jake stood ready, no longer just a foot soldier in someone else's narrative, but the architect of his own story. Days later, he faced the attorney, no longer a trembling figure in the background. The confrontation was direct and unyielding, Jake presenting himself as an unwavering force. He spoke of love, commitment, and unqualified rights as a father. Each statement carried a weight that echoed truth and defiance. The attorney, caught off guard by Jake's confident demeanor, tried to reassert dominance. However, this time, Jake met the challenge head-on. "This isn't just about legal rights. This is my family at stake. It's time to recognize the bond we've created that transcends any document you can wield." By the end of their encounter, the attorney's veneer of authority cracked, and Jake felt a triumphant surge through him. He realized no matter the outcome, he had proven to himself that he could navigate complexities with courage, dignity, and love. Returning home that evening to Sarah and their child was cathartic. As he cradled the baby in his arms, he glanced at Sarah, a soft smile illuminating his face. "We did it. I did it," Jake whispered, triumph flooding through his veins. Deep fulfillment wrapped around him like a warm embrace. "Our path won't be without challenges," Sarah replied knowingly. But you've already shown what it means to stand firm. And as they began to construct a life together, Jake understood that this was merely the nascent phase of a lifelong journey. A journey filled with responsibilities, joys, and the beautiful unpredictability of parenthood. He had stepped into a space of confidence, burgeoning capability, and profound connection. The shadows of his past, once oppressive, lifted into the light of a promising future. Through resilience, commitment, and an unwavering spirit, he had transformed, not just as a partner or father, but as a man, ready to embrace the fullness of life. Jake had finally conquered the limitations he had placed upon himself. He had risen to the calling of fatherhood, armed with love and defined by his own choices. The real test would be the future, and he felt unwaveringly ready to challenge anything that lay ahead. This was his moment. Jake turned towards Sarah, gratitude spilling from his lips. "Thank you for believing in me." "No, thank you for becoming who you're meant to be," she smiled, their shared journey bringing them closer than ever. And just like that, the curtain began to rise on the next act of their lives, a stage set for love, growth, and unwavering tenacity. Now was the time to thrive. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.